I want to welcome all of you to this Strudel Media Live photo talk. That's part of our series called What Moves You? And I'm very happy to welcome Harvey Stein and Virginia Hines to this talk today. And as I mentioned already, I'm looking forward to hearing about Harvey's book, Coney Island People, 50 Years, which he will discuss today. I want to just briefly tell you a little bit about this photo talk series. We started this at the beginning of the pandemic to help people in need of food. And I am very happy to announce that your donations helped us from just a few years ago up to today to reach the high mark of $10,000. So we raised $10,000 for the Migrant Kitchen Initiative. That's a nonprofit organization in New York helping people who, as I mentioned, who are in the need of food. And I actually got to go with them at some point. They invited me to come along to bring food to people's homes. And I can tell you, people were so extremely happy to receive these groceries and cooked food. And it was an amazing experience. So I want to thank you for your donation. I'm Anya of StrudelmediaLive. We offer live online photography classes. And for those of you who don't know StrudelmediaLive yet, our classes are all limited to only 8 students. So we only do small groups. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on YouTube, where you can see past photo talks and also Stefan Frank's photo book show. That's another series we do. So lots of stuff. But I also want to mention, if you have questions during Harvey's talk, you can type them into the chat, or at the end, we will do a Q&A where you can ask Harvey directly. And the talk will be about an hour long, just so you know, a little more or less that. Yeah, okay. And now I would like to introduce Virginia Hines, and then she will introduce Harvey. So Virginia is the moderator today, and I'm really excited she's here. Thank you so much, Virginia, for doing this. She is a photographer and photography writer based in San Francisco. She's a frequent contributor to Street Photography magazine, which has featured her in its year of women photographers and also in 2 podcast interviews. Her photographs have appeared in many publications, and her work has been exhibited in group shows in the US, Europe, and South America. And she also wrote the introductory essay for Harvey's recent book, Coney Island People, 50 Years. So thank you all for coming, and I will hand it over to Virginia. And thank you. Have fun. Enjoy.
Thank you, Anya. So, and welcome everybody. It's great to see so many faces. A lot of you, I know some of you I look forward to meeting in person one of these days. So today it's really my pleasure to introduce Harvey Stein. He is a renowned New York photographer, educator, author, lecturer, and curator. He's published 10 photography books in a variety of genres, and the last being Coney Island People, 50 Years, which is the book we'll be discussing today. Harvey's had more than 90 one-man shows. He's been in 170 group shows. His photos are in 60 permanent collections, and he's represented by Sous les Étoiles Gallery in Manhattan. He's a longtime teacher at ICP in New York. More recently, he's also been teaching at the LA Center for Photography. Harvey has taught at several universities, including Rochester Institute of Technology, Drew University, and Parsons, and he teaches photography workshops around the world. In addition, for 10 years, he was director of photography at Umbrella Arts Gallery in Manhattan, and his photos have been published in just a laundry list of the most prestigious publications, including Life magazine, The New Yorker, the New York Times, and many, many more. Obviously, this man never sleeps, and it's a real pleasure to introduce my friend and mentor, Harvey Stein.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Anya, for thinking of me and thinking of this idea. I think it was your idea to do a only Coney Island talk, which I've never done before. And thank you, Virginia, and for your friendship and help with things digital. And I feel that you're an amazing writer and a terrific photographer. So great. So I think my screen is shared or no?
Not yet.
Not. Okay. I want to start by showing you 20 images from the book for those that maybe are not familiar with some of my work and not familiar with the book. I'll run through them pretty quickly, make some comments, and then I'll turn it over to Virginia, who will ask me questions, and I hope I can answer some of them. So, okay, so I'm going to share. So this is the cover of the book that came out actually late in 2022. It was supposed to come out earlier, but it was delayed because of issues of COVID and shipping supplies. So the book didn't hit the States until probably October of 2022. It was supposed to be a beach book that was here in May, but we were a little late. So as a result, I don't think it's gotten enough attention and exposure. This is the first image and the cover. It's not the first image in the book, but it is the cover image. How do I select cover images? It has to be horizontal because the book is horizontal. And it's probably my favorite photograph from that book. So I've done 10 books, all with a cover photograph and some on the back cover. And those usually are my favorite photographs from that project. So I'm just going to go through them. There's a quick story. This is Michael. I saw Michael in August of 2021 at the parallel bars on the beach at Coney Island. I didn't know him. I saw him up on the bar like this from afar. I was maybe 30, 40 yards away entering on the beach. I went up to him and asked him if he would do that again for me and for me to take photographs of him. And he said, sure, no problem. And he got up there and he just stayed there for at least 2 or 3 minutes as I slowly took about 10 photographs. And then he finally came down, and I was just in awe of his ability to do this. I've never seen this. This movement is called the flag, and you can see why. So this is August in 2021. I had given all the stuff, all the materials for the book to the publisher in January. Schiffer is the publisher. I gave them the materials in January of 2021. And they were working on the book for months and laying it out and copy editing it and doing what they do. And I saw this picture. I made the picture. I made a print, and I called them right away. And in August, and said, I have an amazing photograph. I want this photograph to be included in the book. And graciously, they said, well, maybe. And it got in the book. It's on the first, I think the second page of the book. The book is 50 years from 1970 to 2020, but Michael's photograph is August of 21. And I snuck it in, and I felt it was really important and maybe the best photograph I've ever taken at Coney Island. I don't know. I see his feet, and this is in the depths of the virus pandemic. I see his feet pointing like an arrow to the future. I mean, I'm reading into things. And he was so generous with me. Now we're friends. I see him a couple times a year, perhaps, at the bars. And I just was so touched by his generosity. Okay. These are people dancing on the boardwalk during, this is January 1st during the polar bear swim. Every January 1st, they raise thousands and thousands of dollars by hosting a frigid Atlantic Ocean swim. And there's bands and costumes and people going in with all kinds of clothing or not in the freezing weather. I was just there this January 1st, and I took this image. I try to get close. I'm wide angle with all these photographs. I shoot with a 21 millimeter lens, and the closer I get, I think the better my pictures are. And this is a summer scene. Maybe it's not summer because there's a person back here with a heavy coat on. So it may not be, but I think it is. And my style is close and direct. This was in the 70s. Again, the book is from 70 to 1970 to 2020. So this is 70s. Polar bears exercising before they go in the water. This is Pablo, and Alex is the president of the polar bears. They're both deceased. I love this photograph because it is still, that ball is hanging there, giving poor Pablo pain forever. I think it's a great instant that I captured. I don't feel I'm a decisive moment photographer. I'm not that at all, but this sort of captures in a decisive moment, the moment that can never be repeated. I love it for that. So this is a photograph I took in 1982. I did not develop the film till probably 2015 or so. I had a whole pack of, I had about 80 rolls that I had never developed. You can see the grain more prominently in this image than in most. And it's because I waited so long, and lights kind of infiltrates the cassettes that the film is loaded in. I roll my own film. I have good cassettes, but no cassette will withstand 40 years of light leaking into it. Barely, barely, barely. And it causes a little fogging and granularity, it seems to me. And I just love this instant also. Here's another instant. I guess I say I'm not a decisive moment photographer. I am not, for sure. But occasionally I get lucky with that. I think my forte is to approach people and speak with people and do portraits, still portraits usually, but some of these I like just because they're not that. And you'll see that in some of these images. This is a family. I was on the beach, a family and friends. It can't be one family. I know they're Hispanic. In my imagination, they're from Mexico. Why do I say that? Well, his hat, maybe this shirt. I like to try to understand my photographs after I take them, as well as when I take them, I'm shooting too quickly. I do talk to people. It's one of my strengths, I think. I go up to people and try to engage them and then photograph them. And these people were all generous to let me sit down with them, actually. You can see them on the ground and interact with them. This lady I photographed without talking to her, which for me is unusual. I like the crowd. I like the haze sort of that infiltrates the background. And for me, maybe this young girl makes the photograph for me. She's so, it seems to me, happy and thrilled to be in the water, and is almost a good contrast to the stillness of this woman and the child that she's she's brought to Coney Island with. This is on a jetty full of rocks that goes out into the ocean. We're not supposed to walk and stand on it, but because it goes out pretty far and it's pretty slippery, but she managed well. I went up to her. She did not move, and I engaged her. I photograph children a lot, and I photograph them as people, not as cute little toys. I think we really photograph children too much as sweet, cute things. My photographs of children are as serious human beings trying to negotiate the adult world. And I have a book project that someday I want to realize of all of my New York City kids photographs. This is the first photograph I ever had published. I took it in 1970 before I was a photographer. It's one of my most well-known photographs. And it was in the December 1970 issue of Life magazine. I mean, I should have stopped while I was ahead. Being published in Life magazine before I was even a photographer. That's when I started photography, and I went out to Coney Island, and we'll discuss that, I think, with Virginia, why and how I got to Coney Island. I just saw him as, and this is in 1970 again, I saw him as a person from the 40s or 50s with his funny hat and his funny bow tie, and there's his lunch, and he's looking at his book. He was looking down at his book when I approached him. I got immediately on my knees on the wooden boardwalk. This is the old boardwalk. I clicked. He was looking down. He looked up. He heard my click. I didn't have a Leica then. And then he said to me, then I took another photograph, this image. So 2 images, 2 shots. And then he waved his arm and he said, "Get away, get away." And I got up and left. I didn't speak to him, but I thought I had a good photograph, and indeed I did.
Hey,
He was not
Harvey,
pleased.
I'd like to ask you a question because there was a question from the audience. If you could explain a little bit more of what a decisive moment photographer is, because you mentioned that you aren't one.
Yeah. So this is a term coined by Henri Cartier-Bresson, a fabulous French photographer. It's a candid photograph, but not at, it doesn't refer to the peak of action. It refers to how the photograph is composed, that all the components within the frame is at its peak placement. It couldn't be better to make a wonderful photograph, I guess. It's often taken as like when the basketball goes into the basket, or the height of the jump, or the peak of action, and it's not really that. So I hope that helps. So I'm more deliberate. I'm more like this photograph, where I'm arranging. I'm finding people in a scene that I want to place, that they're placed in already, that I find really successful. And or I will move them into a place a little bit, move them from 2 feet away from a distracting background into something that's a little better. I'm more a still photographer rather than an action photographer, if that makes sense. We'll see some of that. So here, this is at the Mermaid Parade, this image and this image. These are mermaids. And here, unlike all the others, there's no background but a wall. I think it was raining, and so we went undercover. There's a baseball stadium near where the parade begins. This was before the parade begins. I always go to these events early in the formation of them. I'm not interested in a parade per se. I want to go early to photograph the people who are going to be in the parade, who are waiting and available. So you can see that there's a big difference between a decisive moment photograph and a street portrait. I call these my street portraits. This is Harry. He's a character. He's always there. He's mostly fishing on the pier. I got him on the boardwalk, very friendly. So over 50 years of going there, I've made some friends and keep photographing when they're there, the same people, but I'm always looking for new people. And he's standing in front of Ruby's bar. This is Ruby's bar right here. And right beyond this partition. I usually don't photograph people with arms folded. What I reacted here to was his face, his hat, and the lighting. Lighting is very important, and we should talk about that. This is a woman on a very hot summer day walking through the spray from a ride. This is a jet plume ride. I don't remember the name of it. And I caught her just walking through. And I think it's really a beautiful photograph. There's always something that makes me want to produce or make a print of a photograph that I've shot. I probably make one print per contact sheet. I'm still shooting film. I was at the ICP darkroom yesterday. I'm going into my darkroom on Thursday. I'm still printing days on end. So there's always, like, I'm going to use this photograph as an example. If this hula hoop didn't engage, corral, be placed on, not on top of, but or let me put it another way. If the parachute jump were not placed within the loop of the hula hoop, I probably wouldn't use this. But this really works for me. This hula hoop really works for me. If this were cut off, let's say the edge of the frame was here, I would say it's defective. I think that because this was gotten all in, and I got her topless, which didn't hurt the photograph, and where the big hula hoop was placed, I may not have used it. So I could almost say that about any image. Another hula hoop here. This shadow is really meaningful to me. I can't say I was 100% aware of the shadow, but I certainly was aware of her. This is at another parade before the parade, and she's practicing for the parade. I had never seen someone do 5 or 6 hula hoops like this. So I'm often attracted to things I've never seen before, and there's no mystery about that. And getting close. I wish, in retrospect, I had even more of the shadow and not cut that off. But the shadow's pretty strong. She's definitely the dominant person or item. I hate to call her an item in the subject matter in the photograph. And then circles. Circle. I wish that weren't cropped. Sometimes it's so fast. Even this is a new roller coaster. Oh, that's part of this roller coaster. Yeah. What's it called? I forget. Come to me. Okay. This is the last photograph in the new book. And this is my friend Margarita, who's my travel partner in all my workshops. And we photograph a lot together. And she lives in Tokyo, soon to live in Athens. And she was there with me. And I asked her to do this. And I had in mind this photograph, which is the first photograph of my previous Coney Island book. So I wanted to link the two books together, if only for me. This is my first photograph in the 2011 produced Coney Island book called Coney Island 40 Years. This is my Coney Island People 50 years. This was taken in 2013. This was taken in 2008. Look at the background. Look at this building. It's almost falling apart. It's decrepit, but it was still standing and housed some stores, versus this new building 5 years later, and the scene is not completely different. Nathan's is across the street. It's still there. Wait a minute. Let's see. Yeah, there's Nathan's. This is still there, but this is different. What I reacted to here was the shadow and Coney Island. I thought it was a good introduction to my book, Coney Island. And this, I reacted again to the sign, but I wanted to put something in the photograph other than just a walker. And both have this walker. It's probably a different man, right? It's 5 years difference in time. And then this one. Okay, and then the final photograph I'm going to show you. Sorry, I'm hitting. Is this? This is the cover of my 2011 Coney Island 40 People book, and probably the most famous photograph, most well-known photograph I've done. It was featured in a major museum traveling exhibition on Coney Island. It was the feature image for the Brooklyn Museum. They had posters. They had subway posters using this. They had a 40-foot cloth rendition of this image on the front of their museum. And the show was not only of photography, it was paintings and writings and memorabilia and lots of other art, movies. The question is put to me, what about the hands? I like the hands. I didn't plan the hands to be there. These are their friends reaching in. I photographed them as a group, and some people just, I don't know, they just intuitively put their hands in. They didn't think they'd be in the way because I had a wide angle lens. So I like the hands in there, whether you guys do or not. And here's the parachute jump. You could see the tilt a little. That's because of the 21mm lens. I'm used to it. It might bother some folks. Okay, I think that's what I want to show. So I'm gonna unshare and turn it over to Virginia to ask me some tough questions.
Terrific photos, Harvey. You've been to Coney so often over 50 years. You've published 3 books. How do you keep seeing it with a fresh eye, visit after visit, and what keeps bringing you back?
Yeah, well, the reason I go to Coney Island is not this is startling, I think. It's not because of Coney Island. It's because of the people. I love the people there. There's a great diversity of people in a small space. Coney Island is not large. It's 5 blocks, maybe 8 blocks long, and maybe 2 blocks wide. So it's a really confined space with lots of people. If you want to find lots of people in the winter, there's not so many people. The rides are good. Notice I'm not shooting the rides. I'm not shooting the water particularly. I'm shooting the people. Every time I go back, it's a whole new world of people. There are a few characters always there, and that they're good to see. There's a few shops. I know some of the shopkeepers and photograph some of them, but it's the people, and it never fails to surprise me from all over New York, from all over America. It's and tons of tourists from the world. So it's the people, and that's ever changing. I have to admit, I can get bored there. I mean, I've been there at least 600-700 times. That's a lot. That's a lot. But it's fascinating. It's a fascinating place. And with a camera, it's open to people are friendly there too. There's no hostility. Everyone's on like a little holiday for the day, and mostly they welcome being photographed.
So Coney is such a colorful place. I know one of your books was in color, but mostly you shoot in black and white. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I don't see Coney Island as colorful. Um, I'm shooting in India. I'm going to India in 2 weeks. It'll be my 8th trip. I'm working on a book on India. It's all in color. It's all digital. I feel I'm a black and white film social documentary photographer, and I love black and white. I'm getting a little tired of the dark room after 50 years. It's hard work, but I don't see a lot of color. It's colorful. It's colorful at night. I'm not shooting much at night. I see it in black and white. And the famous photographs of Coney Island, whether it's Robert Frank, Winogrand, Bruce Gilden, it's all black and white. I think black and white photography is much more evocative than color. I think black and white is personal, where color can be pictorial, that we get lost in the colors and don't connect with the subject matter as much. I want my subject matter to stand front and center, not the color.
Do you ever mix black and white and color in the same project?
I haven't yet. I mean, when I for the first 30 years of bookmaking, from 70 to maybe 2000, you'd never see it mixed in a book, black and white and color. Now the technology allows that. I've yet to do that, and I have so far no plans to do it. I mean, if it works, if it contributes to the message or the idea of the book, great. I'm all for it, but I haven't done that. Yeah.
50 years is that's truly a long-term project. Do you prefer working on these defined projects or just being in the moment and sort of shooting reactively to what you find on the street?
Well, I do shoot reactively. I do go to places for the first time, the third time, the fifth time, because I thought I think it's a good place to go without any idea of doing a project. But from day one, my first years in photography, which I would say 1972 on, I started a project, and that was photographing identical twins. I had a personal reason to do that from my background. A lot of my work stems from that. I go to Coney Island because I went to Kennywood Park, where I grew up. I grew up in Pittsburgh. Kennywood Park was the amusement park, and still is, of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's a fabulous small park, much bigger than Coney Island. And as a kid, I went there a lot. And so I have that experience. And when I came to New York, wow, Coney Island. And I keep going back and keep finding gems. So I don't know. I keep going back even now. One of my secrets is to keep going to the same place over and over to build up a body of work. So I always try to fit in what I'm shooting into a project, but that might work with 20% of the images I print. I shoot a lot. Most of it isn't very good. I mean, I'm editing my contact sheets and my work very strongly. So, yeah, I want to fit images in. Like, I have a project on kids. I have a project on animals. I have a project on people in their cars. I mean, things that kind of make sense. They're not political. I'm not a political photographer. I'm interested in people. I have a project on trees, but what I work on mostly is people. So if I'm doing portraits in one neighborhood and a portrait in another, I can link them because they're my street portraits of New York City. If I do portraits in India, I can't put them in a book on New York, but maybe I can start a book on India. So I'm thinking of projects all the time. I do feel I like the individual image, but I think there's more to that, more to be gained by linking images together, putting them together. I look for sequences, I look for correspondences, I look for similarities and differences, but within a framework. So I teach a class, I've always taught classes on the long-term photo project. So that's where I'm geared toward. Yeah, long answer, sorry.
No, it's all great. So Coney Island People, it's your 10th book, and the process and the economics of publishing a photography book have changed a lot over the years. Um, and yet today, publishing a photo book has never been more popular. Do you have any advice for the photographers out there who may be looking to publish their first book?
Yeah, it's easier to publish today, but it's not easier to make any more money than we did before. You never make money, so don't think you're going to make money publishing a photo book, number one. Number two, you've got to work at it a good while. All my books are at least 6 years in the shooting. One exception is I shot at the Mardi Gras for 1 week. I shot SX70 photographs, Polaroid SX70s of people in costume, their faces close up, all people at twilight. And I stored those photographs, and 40 years later, a publisher saw them and did a book called Then and There, Mardi Gras 1979. It came out in 2020. It's a small press book. Work long and hard on the project. Keep going back. Completely surround the subject, and you become the expert. Don't rush it. And thirdly, make contacts with publishers. Don't just send it in over the transom, so to speak. Meet publishers who are giving talks. Meet them at openings. I don't know. Get a reference from a friend to who has published with that publisher. It's hard to get published. Publishers are wary. Photo books don't sell. My first 3 or 4 books, the twins book, I did a book. The second book was on painters and sculptors and artists in their studios. Those sold 10,000 copies. It's called Artists Observed. We're lucky now to sell 3,000 copies. People are not buying books. They don't want to pay $50. Books are cheaper now than they were in the 70s, given inflation. So I think it's important to do books. It gets your name out, but it takes a lot of work and research. And don't approach a publisher until you're ready, until you think the work is ready, I guess is what I would say. By the way, I teach classes on it, which I'll mention at the end also.
Great advice. So do you have a favorite photo that you've made at Coney? Maybe one that really says what you want to say about the place or about you as a photographer?
Wait, where are they? I think I lost my photographs. Yeah, I would say the skinny man on the railing that I mentioned. I would say the last picture I showed where they're hugging and the hands are coming in. Those are favorites. And Michael as the flag on the bar. Those are 3 of my favorite. I mean, I've published 300 photographs probably in book form of Coney Island. So I'm hard on my photographs, on my choices. Those three stand out.
That's amazing. 50 years and you're still making new favorites like the one of Michael.
Well, I'm saying either you have to be crazy or a genius to work on one place over 50 years. And I know I'm not a genius. So, I just like going back. I keep going back to the same places. Mexico, I did a book on Mexico, 23 years. I kept back, 18 years. I kept going to the same village, the same places to get an in-depth feeling and understanding of the place to make my photographs stronger and better, I thought. I would always stretch it to go a little further, go to a new place. India, I've gone now, it'll be my 8th trip. It's huge. No one can ever cover India, even living there completely. So I keep going and always go to a new place too, to stretch it, but always go back to some of the places I love. It's a way of working. I mean, it's not for everybody. And I have so many different projects. I don't feel that I'm neglecting other practices, other bodies of work by keeping up with the same project year after year. There's plenty of time to do it all, I think.
You often told a story about how Ben Fernandez told you to go to Coney Island with a 21 millimeter lens. And now that focal length has become one of your signatures. Why do you think he recommended it all those years ago, and why have you stuck with it?
Yeah, well, Ben Fernandez is I don't think he's so known anymore. Does anyone know who he is? He was my first teacher. He was the preeminent street photographer of the early 70s and into the 70s. He started the School of Photography at Parsons. He was a guy from the East Harlem, 6'3", big, loud, very charismatic. And he took me under his wing. He was teaching and I took a class, and he used a Leica and a 21, and he shot a lot at Coney Island. As a student of his, he said to me, get a Leica, get a 21, and go to Coney Island. And the good little student that I was, I did that, and I'm keeping it up. I mean, and I think he's right. I really love the 21 millimeter lens. It lets me get close to people. It's not, if you're more than 5 feet away, you're not going to make a good photograph with it, 8 feet away. So I use that, I get close, and I get an environment. I get that person's location while still being close. Usually a face is not enough for me. I want an environment. I want the environment to help tell the story about this person. I can get into crowds. I did a book on Midtown Manhattan crowds with the 21. I was part of the crowd, and I could shoot within that crowd and get not a face or 2 faces, but I can get many faces. So it's a lens that I really like, and I use it probably 85% of the time that I shoot film. I have a 35 millimeter that I use on a second Leica. I have an 85 or a 90 telephoto Leica. I never use it. I have a zoom lens on my digital Canon 16 to 35. It's the only lens I use. So I think and live and breathe wide angle, wide angle, wide angle. And that has to do with me photographing people. If I were doing buildings or landscapes, I wouldn't be using that lens so much. Or sports, I would be using a telephoto lens. But that lens allows me to do the kind of work that I prefer to do, if that makes sense.
Totally. So when people look at your work, What do you want to leave them with? What do you hope they're going to take away from that experience?
I hope they buy a print.
Buy the book.
I hope they like the photographs, you know. I'm shooting for myself. I've never shot for anyone else. I've done assignments. I didn't ever like doing assignments, but on an assignment, I would shoot the assignment and then I'd shoot it my way and often give them some of my pictures, and they'd often like what I shot and use that. I want to, I don't know, I want to show things that I like and or how I see the world. I want them. I'm not there to instruct them with my photographs. I don't think I can change the world with my photographs. I never have tried to do that. I don't want to go to war with my photographs to take photographs. I want to travel. I've traveled all over the world. I've met really amazing people. I met you, Virginia. I met Anya because of photography. It's my life. It's what I breathe. I love going on workshops, I've done workshops taking people to China, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, India, all over South America, Italy. I did a book on Italy. So I'm getting to experience the world. It's my education still. And it's the only thing I really wanted to do. I have a corporate background. I worked in corporate America for my first 8 years of after graduation of grad school and college. So this is still new for me, even though it's 50 years later, believe it or not. And I love it. And I love meeting the people. What they get from it, I can't control. And I just hope they like some of my work. That's would satisfy me. And have shows and try to get it out.
That's terrific. So just one more question, then we're going to open it up to the audience. I know they're champing at the bit here. You've achieved so much in your profession as a teacher, a lecturer, an author, a curator, and of course you're an artist yourself. So you've also helped countless people along their own photography journey. So what's next? What else do you want to accomplish?
I guess my career is based on making books, and I would like to do a few more books, one on India, maybe a couple more books about New York City and the people of New York City. I'd like to have a show here and there. I had a show this past October in New York. I'm with a gallery. Just get the work out. I don't want to make films. I don't want to do AI, I don't think. I just want to make good photographs that I like. I'd like to keep traveling. I'm in good health, and produce work. I don't know. Maybe I'm kind of narrow-minded, but no. And I teach. I love teaching. I haven't taught in person since COVID. I am enjoying teaching virtually, surprisingly. I didn't think I would. But it's working out, and I'm meeting people from all over the world, just online with my classes also. So I guess that answers it.
Yeah, that's terrific. So let's open it up to the audience questions. And I think Edward has got some teed up for us.
Actually, the first one is asking Harvey if when you go to Coney Island, do you have certain shots or scenes in mind already, and how patient are you waiting for your shots?
When I go to Coney Island, I'm patient. I walk around. As I said, sometimes not much is happening. I take classes to Coney Island also. I do a workshop, a 3-day workshop to Coney Island. I'm doing it this June if you're interested. I don't have a preconceived idea. I go when I know certain events are happening, like I was just there January 1st for the polar bear swim. That's a massive swim. I also go sometimes in the winter to the polar bears swim they have a club. It's the first swim club in America, winter swim club in America. And I know them mostly, and I photograph them when they go into the water. I don't go into the water, thankfully. It's freezing. So that's on a Sunday, every winter Sunday. And then I just go, I might take a friend there, go with someone to shoot. There's always something happening. I could be there every day, but I can't. It's an hour and 15 minutes for me to get there one way by subway. So it's a long day. But no, I don't usually have anything preconceived. And I'll stay there 4 or 5 hours and shoot 3 or 4 rolls of film. I'm shooting just film there now. I used to shoot, my first book on Coney Island was color slides. And I shot a lot of slides. We don't shoot slides anymore. I've shot digitally there. I thought that I would stop shooting digitally there and just concentrate on the black and white.
We could actually open the questions up to the audience. If you have something you'd like to ask Harvey, just unmute yourself and ask.
Great. That would be good. Anyone have a question? I'm open.
What keeps you shooting film rather than transitioning to digital at this time?
I love film. I don't know Photoshop. Oh, I know Photoshop a little. I don't know Lightroom. I don't know. I still have a dark room. I think in 2 years, maybe I'll be ready to transition totally. I've been shooting digitally since 2006, but I don't do a lot. Now I go to India. I'm shooting 80% digitally there and just a small amount of film. I want the color. I want the light. It just felt more conducive to shooting color there. And there's no more slides. And so I'm shooting digitally. I like film. I know it well. It's in my DNA. I was raised with it, in the 70s, shooting film. So I don't want to abandon it. It's been a good pal. And I want to keep it with me somewhat. So
there was somebody else who wanted to ask a question at the same time.
Oh yeah, Joe, did you have a question?
I just had a quick question for you, Harvey.
Okay.
I had a quick question. I've heard about plans that there's going on in Coney Island to gentrify the area, and I was just wondering, has that changed like the demographic of the people that you're seeing coming out there, and has that affected your work in any way?
Yeah, good question. Joe is from my publisher Schiffer, and we've become good friends. And he's always a great help to me. So Joe, I salute you. They're building high rises there now. They're not all complete, so it's not finished. I haven't found any effect on the boardwalk or on the beaches. Coney Island have always felt, is the poor man's Riviera. It costs nothing to go there. Why do people flock there? It's a beautiful beach. It's a beautiful, second longest boardwalk in America. I think Atlanta has a longer boardwalk of all places. It's just really terrific to be there. And it hasn't changed. And it is a class of people. I wouldn't say the high rollers go there. Because it's free, and I think it might change. Now, in the 70s when I started, it was dangerous. Not necessarily during the day, but at night. It was decrepit. It was it was abandoned. The roller coaster was still there. The Wonder Wheel was still there, but nothing much was happening. And then a guy named Dick Zagan started the Mermaid Parade in 1983. That helped. Bloomberg put money into it in the 90s, or whenever in the late 90s. So it's gotten much better. And now they put in a new park. They destroyed or got rid of the old park, amusement park. And in 2010, an Italian amusement builder of amusement rides came in there and redid the whole park. So it's been quite successful, and it adds to the tax base of New York City. So the tax base is much better these days. Am I showing up?
There's another question. Susan, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, hi, Harvey. And
hi, Susan.
I'm one of Harvey's students. He was actually my first student. He was my first teacher. Anyways, Harvey, so I know.
And still the best, right?
Absolutely.
Just to say, yes.
Harvey's terrific. I encourage everyone to take his book class. I actually got a book proposal.
Susan's having a book published in
thanks to Harvey. So
October,
thank you.
because of my class. Yay, not because of us, but yeah.
So Harvey, I see you operating in two modes. The first one is Coney Island, where you go back year after year, month after month, and you know where to go and what you're looking for. But then when you go to someplace like India or Vietnam or wherever, and you're in a new environment, right, how do you case it out? How do you decide what the story is? Or you just go out on the street and shoot and whatever happens, happens? What's your MO for that?
My first introduction and only introduction to India is through a workshop that I did. So I hired agents and a travel agency and teamed up. I teamed up with, I was a partner in a workshop. I was the teacher and I got all the students, but my partner was an Indian woman who lived in New York. She was a former student. She asked me if we could do a workshop together in India. And I said, yeah, let's do it. Archana, her name is Archana Kumar. And she and I did workshops there for 2 or 3 years. And then I got to know it somewhat. And then she and I split as partners. I got Margarita to become my partner, and we've been doing it ever since. So that's true in in Mexico. I went to Mexico on my own for a couple of years. Then I started doing workshops there, and I went there 14 times in 18 years and did my Mexico book.
I guess my question is, though, Harvey, when you go into a new place, do you have a theme in mind that you want to shoot?
Yeah.
You just hit the streets and start shooting.
In Mexico, it was death, the nature of death in Mexico, life and death. And that's the title of my book. I always knew that they treated the elderly and death differently than we did. And I looked for that. I looked for images that was symbolic of death and dying. And by the way, that book, it's called Mexico Between Life and Death, came out in 2018. It's probably my best book, to be honest. It's the strongest book that I've done. I think my new Coney Island book is wonderful too, but this one has more of an edge to it, the Mexico book. Elsewhere, no, but yes, it's people, how people live on the streets mostly. Even New York. I'm not privy to getting indoors to places too much. I don't try that much. I love the street. We didn't talk about street photography. I love being on the street with a camera and meeting people. I go up to people. I talk to them. I married a woman who I met on the street. We're not married now. It's my ex-wife. I'm married to someone else, but that was the way I met her, through the camera on the street. And one thing led to another. So I just, no matter where I go, I'm interested in street life, how people behave in public situations. And I try to go to places like parades, like events, like block parties, where there's a gathering of people. And that starts me. And then maybe I find themes following that.
Say, Harvey, from
I don't know if
the
that's
chat,
helpful.
we have another question. From your earlier color slides, did you produce black and white or color images?
No, I shot color slides, and that book was color. I never converted that to black and white. And that was in I shot that from 1970s to 1997, and I realized I have thousands of pictures of Coney Island. Why don't I do a book? That would have been my third book. I did a book in the 70s. I did a book in the 80s. I guess I was thinking I should do a book. It's time. I hadn't done one in 10 years. And I had this treasure trove of slides, and I put them together and went to a publisher. I'm blanking on him, W.W. Norton. And I had a great editor who has passed away since, and he did the book. And that really got me rolling more on doing books. I did that from my archive in 1970s and 1997. I didn't think it was an archive. I'm still working. I'm still working now, but I have an archive. I have 50 years worth of, I have 25,000 prints in my office here, 8 by 10 prints that I've made.
That's a lot of prints in your office. Harvey, we need to soon wrap it up because we are already over an hour.
Okay.
Edward, do you want to read one more question?
Let's see. Okay. One more question is there anywhere you want to go to photograph that you haven't explored yet?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've been to China. I don't want to go to Russia. Yeah, maybe some parts of South America. I'm planning on a trip this fall. We're going to India in a couple of weeks. This fall, we're planning on a trip to Sri Lanka. So I'm real interested in that. It's sort of like India, but different. I have no like hot desire. I like going back. I know I'll go back to India on a workshop. I know I might go to Vietnam again. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that. Actually, I should, but I don't.
Harvey, thank you so much. This was really wonderful. I think it's completely amazing that you have been doing this for 50 years.
I know.
I love Coney Island. It's such a wonderful melting pot here in New York City.
Have you shot there? Have you gone there?
Yes. Yeah, I did a project out there also that was a 10-month project on Brighton Beach, actually, which is next to Coney Island. That's where I work.
Mostly every New York photographer has been there. Once you go, you want to go back. I think most people do. Right. I want to thank you.
Right.
Thank you, everyone, for attending. And you can always no problem.
Harvey and Virginia, please stay. And I want to say goodbye to everybody else. Please check out the StrudelmediaLive online classes. I hope to see you in some of our courses. And thanks again for coming. And we are doing more talks coming up. So maybe I will see you in some of those. Thanks again for being here.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.